Hello, good day. Thank you very much for inviting me and accepting my abstract for the CMC Conference 2022. My presentation is on how Sri Lanka's rural young man's same sexual desires works and contribute to create a non-corporate virtual organizations. That is, I specifically term label call that men's specific fan community on Facebook. What is the peak of my research and what's the essence and why it is matters to work on is that what is a non-corporate virtual organization as a men's specific fan community on Facebook, right? This is, I divided into a couple of units or variables. Non-corporate virtual organization, I define that that the corporate organization which works for profit or non-profit, but in this case, young men's non-heterosexual relationships, that is same-sexual relationships, in order to achieve these desires and romances, people through the Facebook, as a result of their network and interconnecting, they effectively and uneffectually, they contribute to create a non-corporate organization. This is a kind of a fan community, fandom in media studies. So because people like to enjoy certain things, not only sex, but also romances. However, in order to achieve their expectations, they shape themselves as men's specific fan community. So that I clearly identified three sections of this peak or the problem of the research: how men's Facebook organization network in the same sexual practices. That is where I stand or positions my study. The second is how men mutually understand through men's symmetric dialogue and cooperative network as a result of their dialogue. And finally, how men, as a result, form their men's specific fan community. So my literature goes basically in public relations key concepts as mutual understanding, according to the Ledingham 2033, define how this contribute to the relationship management. Relationship management make organization to achieve their mission and goal. So it develops Dozier, Grunig, and Grunig earlier, and later on Ledingham contribute more on this relationship management. People's different relations, and as their functions, the organization may understand how they are mechanized. The organization can contribute a lot. So, 1984, Grunig developed two-way symmetric two-way dialogue as the best, the excellence theory of public relation. Likewise, it's not the excellence now, but which tells that the two parties has the same democracy and balance 50-50 win-win situations. So I'm arguing how in the Facebook, people, as a result of their networking and interactions, they develop their trust, confidence, in a country where same sexuality is illegal, and in other ways, religious, cultural, and social restrictions and limitations. Even in the virtual space, they need to make a confident understanding. So thereby they goes to their image and reputation. So the Ledingham is very important in this regard. Thought in case of public relation, the negotiation relations is very important, because why and how people even in the Facebook negotiate their desires, negotiate their romances, because people have diverse different needs and wants. In this case, Thoth's interesting idea that pure interpersonal influence, that people can be purely influenced as a result of their interpersonal desires and interpersonal aspects of communications. In the latest research, Borum Chatto argue 2021 how in the Facebook people write, people narrate their expressions. He says that it is a cultural conversations. You know what is culture? people's desires, interests, values, and it makes some conversation place, platform, and how people publicly participate. This is very interesting in this my case. And the page 2080, she works through how Facebook network through the Facebook technicalities and technique tools and equipment like likes, comments, shares, and all this, especially in the media studies, Merwick and Boyd's paper, that is network publics, how the network science works and within the public's desires, and how different offline and online contexts collapse each other in order to create another third versions of context. I argue later on, but not this research. These are very important. Accordingly, I formulate my research questions on these literature, key literature. How do people establish same-sexual intimacies on Facebook as a virtual organization through networking? This is very interesting. But the essence or the core questions of this broader questions is, why do people use fake Facebook profiles to establish their same-sexual practices? That is the salience. So in this regard, it is very important Broadway Horner 2017 study and Blair and Homburg, how especially the digital media network and social media has been a new place, liberating place, a platform for these kind of culturally or socially rejected or marginalized versions of desires, I will argue, right? Campbell and Moulebach has two very important media cultural theories, how people, especially young people, do in the present scenario after 1980 with the digital native context, how they express their same sexual desires in the digital media. When it comes to Sri Lanka, legally, culturally, and socially, and within brackets, openly restricted, limited same sexual desires. So there are a number of literature from Aldrich, I use L. Lavelam, to Vijayawardhan. There are a number of research. This scenario, this juxtaposes a new insight, new versions of understanding. Finally, it is Facebook and young men's same-sexual relationships. In this case, Cassidy's PhD thesis in 2013, and there are a number of researchers, but in this case, I use Hiller and Harrison and Cooper and Dazara, especially Albury and Bryan media theorists, and Devoto, Walker, Bernhold, the public relation theorist, works how Facebook, social media, and same sexuality and networking juxtapose together to emanate another versions, right? So my method is, it is a qualitative inductive design. The sampling is purposive. So in that case, I use maximum variance sampling in order to find out the most interesting salient cases, because in Sri Lanka, a diversity of religious cultures and behavioral aspects over the country. So in this case, I try to cover all the religious, all the cultures, all the geographical backgrounds. In that case, I find out people from north to east and west to east, north to south, east to west, and all the geographical areas, in addition to covering the religious cultural matters. And when it comes to the measures and materials, serially I conducted as the first step qualitative survey, which is not for measuring the mathematical or statistical tool, but in order to identify the diversity of the young men practices. There are 50 cases, and thereafter, as a result of gradually immersing to the in-depth interviews, and in addition, while I'm creating another separate Facebook profile in addition to my official Facebook, to understand how people really play and displayed and catalyst in this virtual space. So my research positions in constructive ontology and interpretative epistemology, as I believe, the people's behaviors are interacted and networked, and as a result of they are behaved, they are done. As a result, if someone goes to create the knowledge, it is very easy and practical to define that knowledge is an interpretative measurement, interpretative immanence. this is the way how I find out the subjects. And the methodology, my sample young men 20 to 24. So why these are, they are, when it comes to young men, they are unlike the women and girls, express more desires and communication about the same sexual relation according to Silva et al. And Nicholas. And at the same time, it is very easy to see how Facebook has a pull of behavioral aspect in these young generations. Some people's coming from the fake profiles. At the first step, I gradually stepped to the health organization in order to recruit my subjects for the qualitative survey. Being the gatekeeper, it is easy in one hand, and it is uneasy in another hand, because there are some political powers and some certain organizational restriction to disturb recruiting the people. However, I informed them about my research and ethical permissions and consent papers. Once they agreed, once they accepted to conduct my research, they allow me to recruit people, because attached to the health ministry, there are some health organizations in Sri Lanka where their young men are provided much health education, sexual and reproductive health. As a result, once I did some qualitative interview through the questionnaire, I was able to find out in-depth interviews to the young men. In addition, I found out some of the interesting cases from online ethnography. Why Facebook? Facebook is not like the Western, as the Alberi and Byron talk, not labeled to either sex or whatever it is. It is a place, platform, people's liberations and communications. And therefore, I selected Facebook as the media or the virtual mode. Also, the second phase is when it comes to the South Asia and Sri Lanka, according to the media statistics, the Facebook is the most used, one of the most used tool of the social media when it comes to the present scenario. Already I discussed about these things, and qualitative survey, and in-depth interview, and the online ethnography. So I measured my validity, reliability, reflexivity as a result of how I double-checked and reviewed the data and the analysis by my respondents in one hand, and on the other hand, my colleagues of the same research fields. Thereby, I assured whether my data and the analysis are properly done without any bias. And the ethical clearance was made by the Newcastle University's Ethical Committee under 6997. So the results and discussions. I'll use only a couple of cases for this presentation in order to manage the time. So the Ranjit, self-identified as gay, 24, advanced level pass, private company officer, who lives in Colombo, Western Province, whose religious is Sinhala Buddhist, tells how men use Facebook profiles for episodic stories, where according to the Chatham, I use how people narrate, how people write, how people show, how people screen themselves over Facebook. I ask the questions. How do you use Facebook for men's affairs? Ranjit said, I use fake Facebook to express my feelings and emotions. So periodically I publish my stories. I want to see how others like and comment. Most people like my short stories. So they also share their sad stories, breaks, and experiences in the comments. I understand that lots of men have different relationships, like love, sex, etc. This helps me to write more different stories. You see, the people, this is kind of a mode of a creative communications. In one hand, on the other hand, they expect they just wanted to form their fan favorism. Okay, you know how people use, right? Likewise, they just wanted to, in one hand, sharing their own experiences, unpleasant or pleasant. On the other hand, they just wanted to know how other people are interacted to my Facebook, because this is very interesting and catalyst. According to my ethnographic data, a couple of screenshots. You see this, the first screen, when it comes to the Yeah, sorry. Here you can find episode 9 already passed 8 episodes. It's like a serial short story, drama, right? So in one hand, they write an interesting story, narratives. On the other hand, they use some romantic pictures. You see how many comments here? 43 comments, 2 shares, and there are a number of, you see how they feedback. You see romance there. This is supiri, you know, it's excellent, huh? Excellent. Oh, interesting, fantastic. Oh, another Katawa Goda Lasanai. This is an interesting story. Please keep on writing, right? You see how people are amalgamated for this narrative, how people share and wear each other's desires and romances while they are plugged in the Facebook. Another one, you see, not like the previous one, stories are there in written words where I focus my analysis, and the visuals say, you see how young men's fabulous physiques, gym bodies are highly marketed. You see, there are a number of researchers, but I don't use in this case. This is a one section of my one chapter analysis only. It's a one teeny case, this study. You see how these people market their flamboyant, showy bodies, right? So you see, in one hand, it's sex. How we can demarcate or divide or classify this either sex or romance. So this is the conundrum, I say. However, people are plugged to this one, irrespective of whether they gay or lesbian or heterosexual, whatever. It's on sole ground of the attractions and how they showcase their physiques, their body figures. Ranjit proceed his talk, and he tell how he experiences that they harvest through fake Facebook holistically contribute to creating interesting narratives. In other words, we'll see first of all what he says. I ask questions. Why these fake Facebooks? Ranjit says, because our rural society doesn't talk about this openly. Instead, there are several unknown people here who can misuse us. Oh, but on Facebook, we have created a set of people to represent our relationships. This is the catalyst. I ask the questions. What exactly do you mean by set of people? Ranjit say, these stories are mine and others. Some are from my own imaginations, while some are waiting to read the next episode, and they comment on their expectation needs. And you see, when one people screen, publish, telecast, narrowcast their story, as a result of how other people are commented and put different responses for the next versions, the same author developed through his stories for a very interesting, elegant versions of the same. I have had a love affair for 1 year, he says, Ranjit. He's a trusted man, but it's a good friendship only, not love. As I personally experience, men expect money and other benefits in relationships. You see, oh, how many intersectional aspects are juxtaposed to one another. So I want to tell you all these realities on my fake page. In my presentation, said how this virtual reality is highlighted. You know, young man, some people are experimented through the sex on behalf of earn the money through their bodies, their attractions. This works intersectionally through the economy, the power, and lots of things. So how we can label this into one segment area of sex or romance or what politics or what it is. Accordingly, my discussions goes like this. First, I say that rural young men dialogue over Facebook, creating their own narratives to distribute over virtual space, and those contents influence people, like how organizations empower people in the case of social justice. This makes some liberating place, liberating their restricted, limited, yet intrinsic desires and romances. This consists of short form web series. Scripted and non-scripted are made available to the organization's wide-ranging constituents through their own YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook channel. Second, I'd say young men are merely influenced by Facebook short stories for men's relationship management. Oh, as a result of these narratives and how they interact and through the comment likes, they later on develop their romances as a result of how they are trusted through these contents of communications. This is according to pure interpersonal influence each other, according to Todd. Third, how young men's Facebook response symbols such as likes and comments, according to Page, to their short stories technically function as a process of interpersonal communication that is used to find mutual definition, mutuality of understanding, agreement, consensus, open, and dynamic in attributes. Finally, how men's creative form of storytelling, which announces men's cooperative wage of their same sexual intimacies, plays a catalyst approach to informing, understanding, and interacting with other people on Facebook, and how men establish intimacies through the development of virtual organization. Accordingly, I conclude, people use storytelling as a strategic, entertaining mode of creative communication on Facebook's fake walls to stimulate people about young men's same-sexual needs. Needs in one hand. In one hand, they emphasize their needs. Second, desires and romantic needs are promoted in the virtual space through how likes bond people through a process of communication as a Facebook fans do, comment and respond to more ideas and perception. On one hand, they are promoted because there is a great deal of demand, market value for men's bodies, men's beauties. Oh, here we go. People can cope with the diversity of men's intimate values and how they are purely influenced by men's actual. In a context of legally, culturally, religiously demarcated and restricted, this has been a liberating, expressive place. Therefore, I use that word catalyst. People interact with themselves to succeed by creating a virtual community to develop the public perceptions and social norms over time to mitigate marginalization and thus achieve quality through presenting positive portrayals of marginalized community. In the South Asia, when it comes to Sri Lanka, family, peoples are rejected, discriminated, discriminalized, criminalized, right? There are a number of research argue. In this scenario, in this context, in this vantage point, this as people, even though they work through the fake profiles and narratives, they have made a power of their own needs and desires in which they can influence not only themselves, but also their societies, families, and other sections of their spaces, despite the virtual. That means it links to intersectionally, it goes to the offline ad. Merwick and Boyd argue through the network publics and content collapse. That means it's not the virtual case. It reflects the offline case, offline happening, offline encounters, offline burning issues. So how we say that it is virtual? It's a mode only. As Marshall McLuhan said, the mode works. Medium is the message. But the same thing, because these people without these virtual societies, how they did these things? They go to bushes, they go to tunnels, they go to secret places, even 2 days. So that's why people enjoy a relatively healthy climate to achieve this and tell their diverse and difficult sexual spiritual perception experiences in their newly developed specific virtual ecosystems. Very, very healthy, say good, supportive, no any threats like in their family or schools or society. Or latest research number of research have argued that people are humiliated, discriminated for their non-heterosexual identities, orientations, and how this gives them a platform to share their different stories. Very interesting. And people's varieties of men's intimacies expressed via visual, verbal, symbolic features of narrative stories help men to virtually dialogue through mutuality of understanding, trust, credibility, emotions, intimacy, similarity, immediacy, and dominant submissions. In subtle, in essence, they develop mutual lines of communication in which they are made, create a confident trust, reputation, image, where they can earn, but in their other spaces, it is difficult. And how this purely influenced their society. Rural young men are emancipated through releasing different desires and difficult challenges through a therapeutic community as a result, to share their common needs, and thus how people virtually organize as a specific fan community. This is a kind of a therapeutic community, you know. Earlier, our society had Bali Tovil, rituals and public shows, dramas, street dramas, where people release their mental and physical stresses or on one hand and their recreations. Likewise, this is a kind of a therapeutic community they make in order to self-help themselves. So thank you very much. This is my, from Albury Byron to number of references here. Unfortunately, I'm very sorry to the Vijayawardena latest research, Colombo University English professor, who argue for last 2 or 3 years how LGBTIQ plus people are marginalized, restricted, not only the law, but all the cultural aspects. So thank you very much for my subjects being participated for my data collection process during the Sri Lanka and even in the online. And my parents, my family members, colleagues, friends, my staff peoples, and my supervisors, and my teachers, mentors from early childhood to now and the future. And my grant Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka, and National Center for Arts and Sciences, Social Sciences, Unity Grant Commission, Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry, I know I have already exceeded the time, allocated time. I try my best to manage the time. If you need to contact me, I'll really humble. I really expect your warm comments, because in order to understand what am I do currently and where am I positioning, because this is very interesting. When I present my ideas, you will develop my thesis, my studies. So I really expect you, while I am really I gratitude you all guys to for your patience and accepting my paper, especially Dr. Ashala and the head of the department, mass communication, and especially ACMC conference chair and committee people. Thank you very much listening to my story. We'll see you later. Take care. Goodbye. Thiruvan Saranai.